right. I think everything's recording. So, welcome everybody. It's Tuesday, September 15th, 2020, which means it's time to get nerdy. So, welcome to episode 157, I believe, of Two Nerds in a Pod. Yeah. This is, as we claim, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the multiverse. But you know, I am joined by a new friend, as Mr. Nice Guy is off doing some stand-up comedy. I am Maction, but I am joined by Lauren, and she is here on our 1-hour mission to bring you news, history, issues, crowdfunding, trivia, and lawsuits important to video games. So Lauren, from Final Fantasy Union, from She Plays Games, a podcast that I am honored and privileged to be sharing the nomination with, or a nomination alongside. Welcome. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm doing well. I'm getting in there. It's been a heck of a week, and it seems like a very exciting week this week. So, you know, I'm doing good. But yeah, it's an honor to be like nominated alongside you as well. Like, I mean, you know, I did not expect to be nominated at all. Like, I was just kind of like, really? Like, really? That's amazing. Thank you. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's amazing. We're alongside such amazing podcasts, and I was really happy for you to offer me to invite me to come on the show as well. That was really nice.
Well, you've got so many things that you're in charge of, that you handle, that you do, that are of such gravity compared to what we do, that I was, honestly, I thought it was a big flyer to just ask. So I'm positively thrilled that you're here. Now,
Oh, thank you.
to anybody who's not already familiar, what kinds of projects do you do, and what kinds of roles do you have in them?
Okay, so so the podcast that I'm nominated for is She Plays Games, and it's basically a podcast dedicated to celebrating women and bringing visibility to women in the video games industry. When I started it, like I was like thinking, crap, I know on maybe one hand how many women I actually know in the games industry who are working on games. Like it was just so shockingly small to me. So my mission was to basically reach out to as many women as I could within the games industry and in many different roles as well, because there's so many ways that you can enter the games industry and so many different ways in which to do it. Like there's no one size fits all. I've talked to women who've gone from construction, archaeology, a lot of different types of careers. There was one who was like an accountant, like she was like in finance. She was a financial advisor, and she was just like, I'm quitting that, and I'm going into the games industry, and I'm making games. And it's just incredible. So yeah, that's basically what I do. I talk to these women, and it's been absolutely incredible. The response has been amazing, and the women who I'm talking to are awesome. All of them are just so sweet and kind, and I'm so grateful. And then aside from that, so what kind of got me into podcasting was I first co-hosted a show called Kingdom Hearts Union. That was how I got like started. That was the first show I ever went on. I was saying earlier how my microphone was a Microsoft Live Chat that was really like crackly and horrible, but it was mine, and it was my first microphone ever. And then from then I moved on to Final Fantasy Union, which was another podcast within the same family. We were all part of gamingunion.net. And Final Fantasy Union, I do with my husband. And that is kind of like our that is like our ultimate baby. We've been
Mhm.
doing it for the last 10 years we've been podcasting on Final Fantasy Union. And then 4 years ago, I think it was, we decided to move to YouTube. And now we do lore content on Final Fantasy games. And I mean, we're at over 170,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is just, it blows my mind, because I strongly remember having like conversations with my friends about how like we had massed like 10,000 and like how proud I was of it. And then now to just be like so close to 200,000, I'm just kind of like, what is this world? What? And yeah, it's been really amazing. The community for Final Fantasy is awesome. And I mean, you know, yeah, it's just been, it's been a lot of fun. So those are kind of like those are the big two babies, career babies in my life at the moment. But yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I wish I could claim anywhere near as much excitement, but this is the only thing I do with my podcast husband, Mr. Nice Guy 425. And we've only been at this for about 4 years or so. But it's it's delightful to have some podcast royalty here with us. And just totally jazzed to have you be a part of the show.
You.
So
much.
For any of you who are tuning in and listening, we are going to be following basically the same type of format that you've grown to expect here at Two Nerds in a Pod. And Lauren, as my co-host and second nerd in the pod with me, is going to be handling the news for this week. So, Lauren, tell me, anything cool in video games that that I should be aware of? Keeping in mind, I don't watch video game news. I don't pay attention. So I am 99% sure that there is nothing you can tell me that I will already know. So be ready for the excitement of a child on Christmas Day.
Oh, well, yay. So the Xbox, I think it's the Series S, has just been leaked. It was leaked and then it was announced because it was leaked. And it looks interesting. There's some people are liking it to what was it that they said it looks like? I can't remember. There's probably like a bunch of memes on what it reminds people of.
Like a DJ thing, like a turntable.
Yeah, it's like a white box with like a big black dot in it. It's like somebody just decided to just put a big hole punch in the middle of the game system. So it's a choice. It's the cheaper one of the consoles, but I guess the sort of sad thing about it is the fact that it's supposed to be a next-gen console, supposed to play next-gen games, but the specs are quite low in comparison to what like the PlayStation 5 is going to be. So it really begs the question of like, what does that mean for next-gen games? Are they all going to be tuned down to the Xbox One S's like standard, or are they going to be like, are they going to be able to have both, where you have like these really high graphic games on something like the PlayStation 5 and the lower tier graphics on the Xbox One S or Xbox Series S or whatever it is?
Man,
it's just, yeah, it's hard.
It's moments like this that I wish I had any sort of practical coding knowledge so that I could like try and even take a flyer at a question like that. But I mean, what on earth is going on? It feels almost like they're just kind of like splitting the market. That subset of the market that was gonna go for the Xbox, now S or X. And do we know anything new about have these leaks prompted anything new about the X that you're aware of?
Not really, not from
Okay.
what I know. Like, I don't follow Xbox that closely. It
Mm-hmm.
was basically just something that I know. Oh yeah, some people have said that it looks like a washing machine, and I would have to agree with that.
Washing machine.
Or a cooking thing like a hob,
Oh
a
yeah.
little
Hot
hot plate.
plate.
But yeah, so like I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if anything else from the series X. But that's the other thing. It's like the name thing. I'm just like, that's gonna be really hard. That's gonna be really hard for me to XS. Like even just saying it like that, it's really hard for me to
Mm-hmm.
differentiate between them. Um, but yeah, I mean, aside from that, we have the PlayStation 5 event, which is happening Wednesday, which is, I think, when this podcast is going to be live.
With any luck, we'll be able to drop tomorrow. But I mean,
Yeah, the Wednesday.
yeah. So, but as of this record, yet. So
Mm.
nobody get out your torches and pitchforks because as of this
Yeah,
record, coming to you
as
from
of
the
this
past,
record, yeah,
we just don't know.
it might be out. So that, I mean, they said that they have some big games coming, one of which might be Final Fantasy 16. Who knows?
May I
Um,
ask a question, Final Fantasy
sure,
related? It,
sure.
I have not been too into Final Fantasies past 10, if I'm honest.
Okay.
But from what I am aware, they have a convention of since 10 doing a thing where like 11, like the odd numbers wound up being more online experiences, whereas the evens wound up being more single player experiences. Number one, is that even close to the truth? And number two, do we have any inkling as to where 16 is going to fall into the trend?
Sure. So, the online games are Final Fantasy 11 and Final Fantasy 14. It would be interesting if they did like only evens or only odds. That would
Yeah,
make
but
a little bit more
But
sense.
for the record,
But
I
yeah,
am completely wrong. Thank you. It's
that's
not an all evens.
okay.
I think it's a holdover from my Star Trek movie sensibilities where the
Yeah,
evens are good, the odd ones are bad. So,
yeah, it's really hard, I think, for non-fans, and it is a bit of a bugbear for me because I'm still kind of a firm believer that like MMOs should have been not numbered games
mm,
because of this confusion.
mm-hmm.
Because like outsiders don't necessarily always know. Like why would you? You
Yeah.
know, like other than, like you think, "Oh, I want to play Final Fantasy 14 because 15's out." But wait, 14 is a completely different experience. Why? So yeah, so 11 is online, 14 is online, and it's basically like a massive upgrade. I mean, A Realm Reborn is a massive upgrade version from what 11 was or ever could have been. Like 14 is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so there's 12, 13, and then 15, which are all offline experiences. And yeah, it's really hard, honestly, to know what's going to come with 16
Mm-hmm.
because so just to give a bit of history, 7 and 8 were both done by Yoshinori Kitase. Essentially, he's the director. He's like um the one who's done the more modern Final Fantasies, I guess you would say. Like with
Mm-hmm.
7 and 8, they are much more like futuristic and
Yeah, they
stuff.
had almost a sort of sci-fi bent to them. Whether we're talking
Exactly.
with, Midgar and Mako or Mako,
Mhm.
or we're talking, lunatic Pandora and the cool dragon spaceship, which I think was called the Ragnarok, if I remember right.
It was. It was called the Ragnarok. There you go. The points.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, and then 9 was more medieval because it was done by Ito and Sakaguchi. Like Sakaguchi was his last. It was his last big hurrah before he left after doing Final Fantasy's Spirits Within. Rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
But and then 10 was Toriyama. 12 was oh no, that's gone. Yeah, 12, can't remember, but it's not my fave.
Mm-hmm.
It's a decent game, and I will fully respect anybody who loves it, but I wasn't that big of a fan of it.
Sure.
And then 13 was Toriyama again, and then 15 was Tabata. It might have been Nomura, had Nomura been able to stay on the project, Tetsuya Nomura, so he's the one who does Kingdom Hearts. But the project was taken from him and given to someone named Hajime Tabata. And so there's been a big question as to who on earth is going to direct Final Fantasy 16. They have not answered this. They have not said a word. So we don't know.
So just so for my understanding, Final Fantasy 16 is supposed to be coming out for on the PlayStation 5, but it's not like we're expecting it as a launch title.
I wouldn't have thought so, but then that's the thing. Square Enix and Japan in general are so tight-lipped. They're like, we don't want anything getting out, which is like fair enough.
Sure.
But then Square Enix is really weird because they don't want anything getting out, but then they announce their games really early, like ridiculously early. Like it's why most of the games since they became Square Enix instead of Squaresoft have been in development hell, because they announce them and then like years go by and then it's just kind of like, where's that game? Is that gonna come out? Is that happening? So who knows if it's gonna be a lot. I don't know. I don't know how long like 16 has been in development or anything for, but there's theories that it could be the same director who did 14, who saved 14, Naoki Yoshida. There's a theory that he might be the director, but he has come out in interviews and denied that he would ever stop working on 14, but hasn't confirmed that he's working on 16. It could also be Ito, who did Final Fantasy 6, 9, and I'm going to say that he was the director of 12. I'm pretty sure he was, but I didn't want to quote it, so I'm pretty sure he was. So it could be him, because nobody knows what he's been doing for the last like 10 years. He's not directed a game since 12. He's not worked on a game since 12. So it's like, is it him? It wouldn't be Toriyama, who did 13, because 13 was not well received. It was quite bad, quite a sore spot. And also he's working on Final Fantasy 7 Remake. So that is the big dilemma that we have. And who ends up being the person who has directed the game may say what direction the game is going in.
Yeah, you would expect the director to direct the vision of the game, I imagine. And
they all have such different styles.
Right? I mean, myself, I'm such a huge fan of sci-fi in general that I would love for us to bring back, our fellas from 8, whose name I will not butcher now, but nonetheless, that would tickle me.
Yeah, I mean, 8 is gorgeous. 8 was the first game that I played. It was my first game. Yeah, so, I mean, I think the rumors are that they are going to try and go to the classical fantasy style, so a la Final Fantasy 9 and 6. That's what Yoshi P has said in interviews that he would do if he were the director of Final Fantasy 16. He said he would go back to his like sort of old traditions, which you can see a bit in 14. He does a lot of odes to old games and stuff. So yeah, so that's like the big question on a lot of our lips as far as the PlayStation event goes. But then like you're gonna see some other amazing stuff. I really hope that they have Bug Snacks on there, because Bug Snacks is the greatest game of all our time.
Powerful words, strong opinions. Having never heard, I've never even heard of this game, so I can neither confirm nor deny. No, I'm an old school.
You have to look it up.
I'm an old school gamer, Lauren. Pre-2000, that's my jam. So
I know, but Bug Snacks, if you look it up, it is so cute. It is the most adorable game. Well, from what we know, it's like you're on an island and all of it are bugs that are made out of food. So you have like a little strawberry who runs around and says strawberry, 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 dee, 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 and it's so cute. And then you eat it. Like these people eat them, eat the bugs, and then their hands turn into whatever they ate. So if you eat a strawberry, you end up with a strawberry hand and stuff. And it is totally bizarre but adorable. So I highly recommend. I highly recommend a watch of the trailer because it's just crazy.
Well, I have written it down, so I absolutely will give it a look. But man, gosh, all you've done here is just tantalize us with more questions than answers about Final Fantasy, and I respect you for it.
I thank you.
But did you have any more news, or do you think we should move on to history?
I can't think of much else that's going on. Like, it's hard because like there's so much like negative Nancy stuff going on that it's just like, the positive stuff. I mean, I'm hoping that we're gonna see more Spider-Man at the event as well.
Yeah.
And there's I don't know. I don't really know. Splunky too. You can high five a dog, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
You can pet a little dog.
Yeah.
And then of course, Fall Guys adds some stuff on this week, which I love. Fall Guys. Fall Guys is amazing. So yeah, I'd say that's probably.
All right. Well,
that's probably the extent of my news.
Well, thank you. I mean, I know nothing about what's going on with Final Fantasy 16, so I feel at least 2,000% more prepared for the onslaught that will be the eventual announcements of Final Fantasy 16. I mean, of course, any percentage times 0 is still 0, but I mean, it's still something. I can do maths. Well, let's take a look now into the past. Now that we've had that splendid primer of what's going on right now and in the future, and we'll take some video game history time here to talk about a little something that happened back in 2005. Are you familiar with World of Warcraft much?
A little bit. I was a Blizzard girl growing up, but I went the StarCraft route instead of the Warcraft route. But I have mad respect for World of Warcraft.
True. I mean, it's an impressive feat by any stretch of the imagination. Well, I have to give some quick credit here. A shout out to Jessica Smith, whose collection of information at the Stanford University Library that was put together in 2012 was really indispensable for my reading on the subject, because on September 13th, 2005, World of Warcraft, with its roughly 4 million players, released a patch called 1.7 that resulted in a virtual epidemic/pandemic with a thing known as corrupted blood. Yes, the corrupted blood incident of World of Warcraft in 2005. Some of you may have heard of it, some of you may have not. I take it from your emoting that you haven't heard of it before?
No, that sounds really fascinating.
Okay.
And really like freaky considering what's going on now.
Yeah.
Corona corrupted. Like, what the hell?
Okay, so buckle up, because it gets interesting. So, in the 1.7 patch to World of Warcraft, it brought on the Zul'Gurub raid online, and the end boss of that raid, which was a 20-person raid, wound up being the end boss Hakar the Soul Flayer, who would debuff the players. The debuff was specifically called Corrupted Blood, and it would drain the hit points of the players in somewhere between high 200s, low 300s every couple of seconds that the Soul Flayer boss would use to heal himself. While it would be frustrating to characters of 60-ish level, which is what was kind of the minimum buy-in. You had to be level 60 or so to get in on the raid. It would be devastating, basically kill outright lower level characters. But how this becomes a pandemic, a virtual pandemic, is that the transmission rate of corrupted blood was 100%. So if your character who got the corrupted blood debuff was anywhere near another character, it would instantly, with 100% certainty, infect the other characters. Now, the way that the corrupted blood debuff went away, like many debuffs, was either, you died, and so when you respawned, you didn't have it, or you ran out the time, and it only stayed with you for a period of time. And when they were coding all of this together, they said, hey, we know about how long it's going to take for people to get from the boss to the end, so we'll make certain that the debuff has run its course before people, get out there. And with that short period of running, they were like, we don't need to write in code to make sure that it never leaves this raid. And that's where it went wrong for a couple of reasons. The one is that what happens if this passes to an NPC, like a shopkeep who has an unlimited amount of HP?
No.
Yep. And number two, pets, summonable pet companions that people had. I know, right? On the plus side, I don't know for sure whether or not it would kill the pets, but I do know that when you summoned a pet, it could be inflicted with a debuff, and when you dismissed it, the pet would basically go into stasis. But what that meant was that after this initial spread happened, and Blizzard tried to figure out how to, tamp this down and get this corrupted blood to stop spreading to everybody and everything, insta-killing off lower level players, and the like, that people eventually figured out that if they wanted to grief other players, which is something people do on online forums and the like, that they could summon their pet in with the corrupted blood debuff, dismiss it away, and it would essentially be this basic pet bomb of corrupted blood disease to everybody around. So what the actual heck? And interestingly, some epidemiologists have studied the corrupted blood incident in respect to thinking about various spread of transmissible diseases. We won't go into that, but we'll suffice it to say that through the works of players and community managers, it was mostly, and in some ways handled by voluntary quarantine. Corrupted blood was handled by late September, but lingering issues continued until it was fully patched in about October 10th in the patch 1.8 that made sure that corrupted blood stayed in, but that it would check to make sure that you were in that and only the region of that raid for the corrupted blood to actually take effect. So that's corrupted blood, and my apologies to anybody for whom this has been a little bit too real with regard to Corona. Probably should have prefaced with that one, but
that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy. And the fact that it was like, sort of this time back then, like, oh my god.
Right.
That's crazy. That is absolutely mad. But I like that. What an experiment. Right. Like, I almost commend them for thinking of doing this, because I can't think of another game where they tried something like this, probably because of how crazy it went for this one.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's amazing.
It just mind-boggling, honestly. But at the end of the day, I've got a hats off for attempting something so, so weird, so interesting, and having it blow up in their face for us to see and look back on, and how very prescient it seems now. Yeah. I guess, I guess this is one of those things where people certainly, at least in the virtual world, learned from history, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they're using it for research as well, it shows like the sort of amazing potential of games to do real world scenarios in game to find a solution. I mean, unfortunately, we can't just patch the human race. If only we could.
If only. And I will say what you've said kind of leads to a small pet peeve of mine, being that with these online communities, and it's actually credit once again to Jessica Smith, who mentioned this at the beginning of the collection of information in her report in 2012, that one of the big issues for events like this, or anything that is a virtually living and breathing ecosystem like any MMO, is that often the code doesn't linger, or the documentation is not as good, because you get past it and you get done. And in the opening of her paper, she was like, hey, look, part of what's important here is trying to preserve the information, because we don't know where it's going to go. Forums and such that were still around at the time are now gone, and she was saying that in 2012, much less 2020. And so I think the fact that we still have some of the good information that we do for epidemiologists to do that studying is in no small part due to efforts on the behalf of people like Jessica Smith, who tried to compile and preserve this. Not only does it make gaming history today possible, but possibly some epidemiological stuff as well. So, Jessica, hats off.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, it's a lot of like what Daryl and I do with Final Fantasy Union, honestly. Like we sort of treat ourselves now as historians, and there's so many articles and interviews that we found of websites that do not exist anymore. And it's kind of weird because you kind of expect the internet to always be there. You kind of expect those websites and stuff to always be there, but they won't. And not even like the archive, what is it called? Wayback Machine can really handle going back to certain pages. Like that information is just gone because nobody's written a book on forum posts or collected interviews and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, if it's not
on
fixed
video
in a
games, at least.
Yeah, if it's not fixed in a medium, it's it's transient and and could be gone. So grab your history, everybody. Hold tight. And thanks to Lauren and you guys there for doing excellent history work with respect to Final Fantasy, because I'm sure that there are things that would be lost if not for your efforts. But I'll leave video game history there for the day, and
corrupted dogs.
The corrupted dogs, and ask you, Lauren. We've got a topic for this week, yeah?
Oh, a topic for this week. I mean, well,
what would you like to talk about?
Well, I mean, I guess we could talk about my favorite system from when I was a kid.
Let's do it.
We could talk about, why don't we just talk about what made the Genesis so great?
Well, for starters, Genesis does what Nintendo don't. And I think so. And I have to say, Lauren, that for anybody listening, that we did not coordinate this. So the fact that we are going to have a little love fest about the Sega Genesis is not any sort of pre-collaboration. But
I just thought of it now. I was just like, if we're going to talk about anything, I think talking about past is always a good thing, because we all kind of connect via it, and we all have an opinion.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested definitely to hear what you enjoyed about the Sega Genesis, and I'm ready to share what I love most about it. But I want to hear yours first.
Sure. I mean, so Genesis was the first console I ever owned myself. So I used to play on my Aunt Trisha's Nintendo, and then I used to carry around her Super Nintendo games because she didn't have a Super Nintendo, but she had the new Super Nintendo games. It was weird. But either way, Sega Genesis was the first console that I got given it for Christmas, I think it was. And I got given two games, Sonic 3D Blast and Toy Story. Now, like, Daryl and I, we had been on the hunt for ages for a good remade version of the Genesis, and we've actually found one now. It's called the Mega SG, and it is absolutely incredible. Honestly, if you can get your hands on this console and you really want to get your Sega Genesis fix and be able to use the cartridges, Mega SG is where you go because it's absolutely amazing. It even makes the graphics better. But either way, um, this is where like I have just so many fond memories of playing platformers primarily, and playing with my friend Carissa. We used to, like, before school, would play Sonic for ages, and we typically get up to Mystic Cave Zone in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 before we would actually have to leave and go to school. But I love the Genesis and sort of that generation of games because they were made for kids, but they weren't dumbed down. They were really hard, like, difficult games. Even now, like, it's quite difficult to get through a lot of the classic Sonic games. And I think that was like a really good era for games for kids to grow up in, because nowadays, if a game's hard, typically there's something with a guy getting his head ripped off or someone getting stabbed or something. Like, not that that's a bad thing, but it's very difficult now to find games that have the same feeling that some Sega Genesis games had.
So I have to admit, going back to what you said about the Mega SG, right? I have a much less polished and a much and much lower quality version that I had picked up several years ago that, used cartridges and outputted via HDMI. The inside of the console, I believe, much like the Mega SG, is FPGA based, and so it's a hardware emulation of the original with a digital out, as instead of converting digitally to analog and outputting that way as the old Genesis did. This keeps it digital and does that output, and it's nowhere near as good as the SG. But I do have to put in a quick plug for something called an EverDrive. Are you familiar?
Cool. No, I know. Honestly, like, I didn't even know of the Mega SG's existence until Daryl bought it for us for Christmas last year. And it was after me mistakenly buying Sega's version of a mini Sega Genesis and being completely disappointed by it, because what on earth were they thinking?
Sure. Well, so I'm the type of person who loves to have old games. I love them to death, but I often find myself being held back by the level of price that a lot of these hold because of other people who like collecting them. So flash cartridges, specifically the EverDrives, are pretty good, but there's a Mega EverDrive made use of. It's a shell for your Sega Genesis cartridge that you plug in, and it, much like this, which I'm holding for those of you who are not seeing it, is a Game Boy Advance cartridge that features a micro SD card. And then what it'll do is when you plug it into your, to whatever console, including your Mega SG, is that it'll first boot to a UI where you select the game that you want to play, and it'll load from the flash card onto the cartridge's memory the game that you want, and then off to the races you are. That being
that's cool.
That being said, usual things about ROMs and emulators, and whatever your personal moral compass dictates.
Yeah.
But a EverDrive for your Sega Genesis, I think you would be most delighted by. So that's just my little side note about something you should look into.
That's absolutely fine. Like, yeah, like that is the one thing that sort of does hold it back a lot with this Mega SG, is like the price point. Yeah, it is ridiculous, really. But like, yeah, if there's anything out there that's cheaper that gets the job done, like that is absolutely well welcomed.
Yeah.
But
back to the question that you actually posed about what was so great about the Genesis, or rather what we wanted to talk about, which was our mutual love, is that I loved that in the original Sega Genesis, they were using chips for the music that came from Yamaha. Yamaha, at the time, they were the ones who were dominating the keyboard market, with electronic keyboards and the like. And I contend that in spite of the fact that the Sega Genesis's UI in the developer tools for music making was not as easy to handle as the SNES, that there have been people who have gone to the trouble and effort of doing famous SNES music in the Sega Genesis with the Sega Genesis sound chips. And I think comparing them side by side makes an absolute case for that the Sega Genesis just had better music. And I will take that one to my grave with me. I love the music on the Sega.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, you had so many great games to listen to. I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog alone was fantastic. Contra, like there's so many really, really, really fantastic pieces of music on the Sega Genesis. I know, like, we listen to it every now and then. Like, my daughter really likes when we listen to video game music, so we'll just start playing it, and then she'll be like, "Mommy, what's this one from?" And like there's times where I'm just kind of like, I have absolutely no clue, but we're gonna listen to it anyway because it's still good. And but yeah, I mean, tell me, so what was one of the first games that you had for the Sega Genesis?
So one of the first games that I had for the Sega Genesis would have been a game called Boxing Legends of the Ring. I have to preface this by saying that I am not a sports video game enthusiast. But this was a video game. You either used pre-selected boxers, or you could actually build your own boxer with various stats, kind of like how we would do in a tabletop role-playing game these days. But you'd select out the stats based on your points. You'd progress up the ladder and fight a bunch of boxers. I don't remember what the boxers' names were, who you were up against, but I do remember just really, really enjoying it. So that's the first one that I remember. Of course, I played Sonic, and I played stuff like Flashback, The Quest for Identity, lovely platformer, that one, and the like, rotoscoping in the animation, so it was really, really fun. But yeah, Boxing Legends of the Rings. That's my first.
It was actually funny. So like this is about, oh my God, I think it's about 10 years ago now. Daryl and I actually, like when we were sort of dating still, we decided to actually do a YouTube series with just the two of us playing through old Sega Genesis games, and we did it over Skype. Like this was like intense. Like we did it over Skype, and then he recorded himself or I recorded myself. It was really, really, really haphazard, but it was so much fun. We were going to go from A to Z if you're from the UK, Z if you're from America. And we basically we didn't even get past A, but like the games that we played, like I wouldn't have been able to play when I was growing up because I just didn't even know of its existence. I mean, looking at them now, like I never had played Altered Beast, which is apparently a very famous Sega Genesis game, and now we like Daryl and I quote it all the time. And then there
Power
were
up, right?
yeah, power up, welcome to your doom. And like
Yeah, it's
it
cool.
was just we do it all the time. And then we actually had found out as well, like some like legendary people came up through the ranks through the Genesis. Like if you think Assassin's Creed, so Jesper Kidd did the soundtrack for Assassin's Creed. I don't know if he still does it, but he did like for the original and definitely for Assassin's Creed 2. Like the Ezio's theme is like amazing. Um but he one of his earlier games was actually one on this Genesis that was called The Adventures of Batman and Robin.
Yes.
That game, oh my god, we couldn't get through the first level like without completely going through all of our lives. That is such a hard game. Like yeah, I'm not the best at the beat 'em ups.
Hmm.
Daryl is definitely that's his forte because we just played the new Streets of Rage, which is that is like his ultimate game. That and like Golden Axe are like his babies.
So I know
Um
this is a question for him, not for you, but is he Streets of Rage 1, 2, or 3?
oh, I don't know off the top of my head.
Uh,
I want to say that he would be like ultimate hipster saying 1,
hmm.
but I want to say I don't think there was one of them that was there one of them that stunk. Was there one of them that like people really hated, or was that just 4?
I mean, I couldn't say for sure, but
Mm,
I will say that I found 1 and 3 very underwhelming, and 2
mm,
is my sweet spot. And
maybe it
Daryl, if you're
was
listening
2.
and you
I
disagree with
know.
me, at me, bro. We will
I
go the
should just
rounds.
I should just message him now and be like, Daryl, which one is it? You know what? It might have been 2 that he was really a big fan of.
Mm.
But that's the thing, like I think we all had such a unique perspective
Right?
of games back then because it wasn't like how it is today where everybody's playing AAA games or playing like super obscure indie games. Like I'm quite happy playing like at the moment Animal Crossing for the
Mm.
rest of my life. But like back then, so many of us had such varied pasts of the Sega Genesis games and which ones we played because it was all so dependent on what you had available.
Yeah.
It wasn't the days where you had Amazon where you could just like buy whatever you want. It was the days where you went into a game store and they either had the game or they didn't. And then you could learn about it in like a magazine or something. But like,
Yeah,
it,
in a magazine if you were lucky. What you
yeah,
didn't have you didn't have that adjusting context of your perception of a video game informed by the fact that you could see other people playing it unless you walked down the
exactly.
street and sat down at Billy's house and watched him play Altered Beast.
It was such a different time. And like, it was even before they started putting like game systems in stores. I remember that with a PlayStation, like that being able to go to like um GameStop and like being able to play like a demo for I think I'd played Dynasty Warrior one of the Dynasty Warriors games when I was at a Target once and that was fun. Um but yeah, I mean I was quite limited because well, one financially like we were dirt broke. And then two, the games that I would get to play were ones that we would get out of the movie rental, our local movie rental place. And so that was how I played like Earthworm Jim and like I played um what was another one? I played Tom and Jerry. That was a really fun game, actually. The Tom and Jerry game for the Sega Genesis. I really liked that one. But like there were classics that I never got to play when I was growing up, like Toe Jam and Earl. Like that is such like a huge Genesis game, but I never got around to playing that. Not
Mhm.
until I was playing this on this series. I was just kind of like, whoa, you know.
Yeah.
But what were like your favorite games, you'd say?
Well, okay. So I, for those of you who are only experiencing this as an audio format, on the back of the wall behind me, I have a watercolor painting of Mega Man,
Of course, Mega Man.
and Mega Man's my favorite. I love the classic series. Um,
Mm.
as a matter of fact, I have a tradition most Thanksgivings of playing Mega Man's the whole classic series. So now it's 1 through 11, playing through it
Oh,
all
cool.
in either one go or broken up, as a little mini marathon in 2 days. But I just love the Blue Bomber, so
Yeah.
so it's Mega
It
Man for
isn't
me.
it's a really like impressive system, honestly. Like the fact that you have to have all this knowledge of like I honestly I don't know how you did it like way back when without like a guide to know what weapons to use against which bosses. So we actually just played it. I think we played 1 through 3 on the PlayStation with my daughter Allie because she just really got obsessed with Mega Man. So she
Good
knows
taste.
about like Dr. Wily and everything. I know. Well, that was the thing. Like it was another series that Daryl and I didn't grow up with. Like it was this a big series, but it's just like we didn't have access to it, so we didn't really play it. But yeah, I mean, they are real like the music is so catchy. I love I mean, it's gonna sound silly, but I especially love the password select song. Like the little jingle. Do do
Do,
do
do,
do
do, do,
do
do,
do. It's
do,
just
do.
so catchy. Oh my God. But like the level music as well is very good. But for some reason that password select music, I love I could listen to that like all the time. Um that's probably really, really sad. But
No, not sad at all.
like I just
It's a
I love
great
that music.
thing. And
Yeah.
I think somebody's ringtone has to be now the password select song for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, Mega Man was just that was just such an intense game. Um, but you know, yeah, no, that's a pretty cool series. Um,
Well,
but yeah, so that's that's it basically.
sure, sure. So, I could talk forever about this, and I feel like I feel like I almost want to, but instead we'll skip along to our next thing. Now we would be going for kick or kick start right now, but we're gonna skip that one this time, and instead, sorry to put you back in the spotlight, Lauren, but we're instead going to zip on over to what we call Nerd Flex, woohoo, where we've got some questions, and some of them are submitted by our viewers and listeners. Others come from our test bank, and we're going to see if we can't flex our nerd muscles and come out triumphant. 3 questions, I think, is the standard that we'll go with today, and yeah, either you can do the questions or I can, just whatever you would prefer.
Okay, I'll do the questions. I'll
Okay.
see. Like, I'm gonna try and think. This first one, I definitely don't know because I didn't have a Saturn. I was like so poor. Um, which Castlevania game was ported to the Saturn?
Okay, so I actually do already know this one, and I'm so sorry, that first one we've already done before.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
sorry,
no worries.
sorry.
Just hit that
But
random
you can
button.
remember it. Yes. Oh, okay. Sorry, sorry, sorry. All
No
right, here we go.
worries. Okay.
All right. So Pokemon. According to the National Dex, which is Pokemon number 1?
Well, I mean, I feel like I know the answer. Because I don't know everything about Pokemon, but I know a little bit. And I'm pretty sure I know which Pokemon is number 1, but when it says National Dex, that's where I feel like the question's trying to trick me, you know? It's like, where exactly is the National Dex? What do you think, Lauren?
Well, I've already seen the answer. But it's I know. Sorry, I already flipped it.
No worries.
But yeah, no, it did throw me off. I will say that it did throw me off. But
Okay.
that's only because like after I saw it, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, it would be that. But it's a tricky one.
Okay.
I would say.
So, well then, in that case, I will say that my expectation is that Pokemon number 1 is Bulbasaur.
And you were right.
Yes!
Yes.
Okay. I've always worried.
Like, it makes sense.
Yeah, right? And I always
it makes
worried.
sense because it's one of the starter ones.
Yeah, and I always worry that that I'm going to get clean swept one of these days, and I'm going to fail every one of them. Since we started doing Nerdflex, we as a unit, as a team, have never been clean swept in the negative, and oftentimes we clean sweep in the positive, getting them right. So at the very least, we will not be breaking with tradition today. So.
All right.
Okay.
Question number 2, right?
Yep.
Okay.
We're hoping for a Final Fantasy so that you can put me in my place.
Oh no, this is Konami.
Okay.
What referee was featured on the cover of Pro Evo Soccer? Oh, that's hard because I'm in the UK and Pro Evo football is the way that we say it, not soccer.
Oh, of course.
But Pro Evo 3 and 4. Pro Evolution Soccer.
I will refer back to a previous comment about not being a sports ball video game enthusiast, so I have absolutely no idea. I know the names of one footballer, and that would be David Beckham.
Yeah, that's what I know, but it's a referee.
Yeah, and I only know the names of 2 footy clubs, and that would be Arsenal and Manchester United.
Those are two accurate names.
Yes.
Got that. But let's see what it is.
I'm giving up.
Yeah, you like honestly, I couldn't even guess this one. Pierluigi Collina.
Oh, Pierluigi. Oh, well.
Pierluigi. I mean, honestly, when I say it that way, then you obviously know.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, Daryl would read me to filth though. He would probably have known that one. He used to be a massive Pro Evo fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that's because it was. I think it was. I'm like, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was like more of the. I think that was more of like the European football game in comparison to FIFA. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of my butt.
If I say yes, will there be no follow-up questions on this line of reasoning?
I don't know.
I don't know either, so I can't. I
have no clue. All right.
All
right. So, in what last one, I guess? Yeah, 3 or
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. In what Capcom game would you find the DLC Lost in Nightmares and Desperate Escape?
Okay, this one I know.
Oh.
Do you have any inkling? Because I don't want to pull the rug from under you. Okay.
Not a clue.
Well, I know this one because one of those DLCs I've completed. The other one I didn't quite finish. But that would be Resident Evil 5. Would be.
It is.
Yeah, there's some Albert Wesker stuff. You know, it's Chris and Claire doing their thing. Anyway, a good time nonetheless. I think Resident Evil 5's probably one of my favorites. But you know, but yeah. Well, I feel good about that. I'm a little sad that we didn't get a Final Fantasy question. Would you do me a kindness and hit that random button just once more? Let's if it's a Final Fantasy, I say we do it.
Okay. It's a Square Enix one, but I don't know it. Oh no.
Oh,
Okay,
then let's
Square
pretend
Enix.
like we didn't see it then.
What game includes first departure and a second what game series includes a first departure and a second evolution?
First departure and second evolution? I mean,
yeah.
I guess
Like,
that's...
is that like Kingdom Hearts? Like, all I'm thinking is like, is that I don't know.
I have
never heard
no
that
idea.
first.
I mean, I feel like it sounds kind of like it's a thing inside of a tactics game to me, but I no idea.
It's because I don't know this series very well. Like, I'm very much Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts,
of course,
focused.
Yeah.
Star Ocean.
Okay.
Star Ocean.
So sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't very big
but
on the Star Ocean.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever played any of the Star Oceans myself.
No, I always hear good things. I always hear good things. But I do have I've randomized a ton.
Okay.
And I found a Final Fantasy question.
Okay, let's do it.
I do know. I think.
Yes. Okay.
What is Sabin's final Blitz move?
Oh, so I know a couple. Sabin is my terrible Amerikansky pronunciation. But I feel like some of his blitzes, I think he's got a suplex blitz, but
I'm gonna say yeah.
Yeah, but I have no idea what his final one is. So
I mean, yeah, so I think it's probably like I would have said like more along the suplex line. But it might be something rush. Let's see.
Oh yeah.
Bums rush.
Bums
rush.
There you.
Yeah. Bum rush.
Nice.
So close.
Well, I think you got it. You got like, I mean, I was still on the suplex bit. Yeah. You got the rush.
I think that's because that's the famous one. That's the suplex. You know, when he suplexes a train.
Yep.
And stuff. That's like the famous. That's the famous one. So yeah. High five. Internet high five.
Woo woo.
Coronavirus high five.
Yeah. So thank you for doing the for doing the trivia. I'm glad that we got a Final Fantasy 1 in there, and I'm even more glad that you showed me up because, well, I mean, cue the angry legions of fans. But we will just move into our last little bit. It is a short one. It's something we call legalese. And in legalese, of course, we focus on stuff that's going on right now related to video games or the legal quandaries that we find ourselves in the things that we love so much. Specifically, we're talking Cater and Kelly v. Big Fish Games. And the short version, I'm going to give you the punchline, is that this is a class action suit about an online casino. This is a settlement done in court, so it doesn't really give us precedent law to work from. It might be helpful for future cases, and I'm quite sure people will draw some of the same arguments from the case, but it doesn't extend beyond the confines of the case. So with the exception, the expectations in check, the central argument that upon which this case was eventually settled was, quote, a thing of value, because in the state of Washington, where this court was being done, they said that the act of being able to continue a game, and to play a game, that the virtual chips that you were getting inside of this casino and that you were paying for because this was a freemium mobile game, constituted a thing of value. Therefore, Big Fish Games was operating an online casino in violation of the law, and they kind of wanted their money back, and it's a class action and all this stuff going on. At the end, of course, there was some back and forth. The case got dismissed and then got picked back up on appeal. They tried to force some forced arbitration. As you know, almost every video game you click I agree to includes something in there about forced arbitration. And so while this doesn't have any big stuff for us to take away from in video games, it is hopeful in the sense that in spite of riders in the contract that you signed when you started playing the game about, oh, you can't sue them for any reason, and even if you can, you're forced into arbitration and the like, that sometimes the cases can actually still go the distance. And longtime listeners here know that I am of the opinion that that we have very important legal questions that need to be answered in the courts about the obligations that video game companies have to deliver to us, the consumer who paid for it, a minimum viable product, often in lines with the types of promises that they made when they sold us the video game. That we need not be so pessimistic about the end user license agreements removing from us as consumers the ability to say, hey, you promised us something, or you're doing something in violation of the law, we're going to take this to court, and to maybe eventually, this case started in 2015 and it's now 2020, for maybe eventually something to prevail. So I'm not a lawyer, I just play one on a podcast, and that's been a little bit of hopeful legalese for you. And Lauren, that's our show. That's all the pre-done stuff, but we do like to, of course, throw out there what we're watching and what we're playing, the nerdy stuff that we're into. So what nerdy things have you and your husband and your daughter been up to?
Well, I mean, I play a lot of Animal Crossing, like probably shouldn't do, but I do. But other than that, we've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles because the remasters just come out, and that's been all right. It has its issues, but it's nice that I'm able to play with Daryl. I play on the Switch. He plays on the PlayStation 4, and we do it on our stream. And then in terms of what we're watching, so at the moment, I'm just kind of watching reruns of things. I know I really want to get into Dark, which is what Daryl's watching right now. We kind of tend to watch shows separately. Like, he'll watch a show and you'll be like, you should watch the show. So Dark is like a time traveling show, and it sounds really cool. But then other than that, and I'm just looking up the name now, I like to watch a lot of documentaries, and there's one on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. And it's about how, like, social media and like Google as well, like it just explores what social media does to you and why certain aspects of it can be really toxic. And it's really fascinating. I mean, it definitely brings a lot of questions. So I definitely think if you feel like you're somebody who is who may be verging on like an addiction to social media, or you just find yourself really attached to social media, you should watch it. I mean, it's really scary how much these companies know about us without us even doing like that much, you know? Like they can pretty much probably recreate us in order to control us, essentially. And it's not that pleasant, but it's interesting.
Yeah. No. Well, it's definitely on my radar now. Well, as for myself, I've been playing, gosh, not a lot, if I'm entirely honest. But a little bit of, there's a ROM hack of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time called Master of Time that I've been playing lately. Another advantage for a flash cartridge is that you can load ROM hacks onto it and play them on original hardware, which is always fun. So I'm playing that on my N64. That's kind of it for me. As for what I've been watching, my wife and I, we're always watching Star Trek because we're huge Trekkies. And
oh, it's so cool. Next Generation?
all of them. But Next Gen
All
is
of them.
Next Gen, Voyager, and DS9 are definitely where we hang our hats.
Yeah.
And we've also been watching. We've been watching back through New Girl. It's some, some lighthearted comedy when some lightheartedness is definitely needed. But unlike
nowadays,
unlike you guys, we tend to watch together rather than apart. I have been playfully told that I have broken our marriage vows by watching certain shows without her. So anyway, I'm glad it works for you guys.
I know. It's just too hard. I mean, we have 2 kids, so it's too hard to find the time to like sit down to watch it like together. I mean, I can count on one hand how many times we've done that this year. We only just got to go see, we went to the movies and we saw Tenet, and like that was like a rarity for us. We were just like sitting in the theater thinking, we're actually sitting and we're watching something properly together. This is amazing. But no, I commend you for being able to, because it is nice.
Well,
it means that you don't have to play catch up in some regards.
True. Well, unlike you, we do not have the responsibility of children in tow, so the dynamic's a little bit different.
Yeah.
We'll see if that still holds up, if and when that time comes. But Lauren, thank you again for being a part of the show, for being my co-host, for someone like me who has only one podcast that they're doing, as opposed to someone like you who has many, and responsibilities, both familial as well as for a runaway success of a YouTube series. Did you guys get yourself a play button recently?
We did. I can't tell you where it is because it's currently so we kind of hid it. We're moving and we kind of hid it because we didn't want people to look. We didn't want people who were looking at our house to look us up on YouTube. We're just like, we don't want them to know who we are. But yeah, so we have it. It's just stowed away somewhere. But yeah, no, it's weird. It's cool. It's heavy. It's shiny, and yeah. Hopefully one day you can know the gloriousness of a play button.
Well, I sincerely hope so. But thank you for being here, Lauren. It's been delightful to have you. I'm honored and delighted that you would take the time out of your day, and thanks to everybody who's watching this or listening to this after the fact. You all are the greatest listeners on insert podcast platform name here. You're the best viewers on Twitch. You're the best viewers on everything, and just the greatest. So be sure to spend some time catching up on your Final Fantasy lore with FF Union, to listen to some of the great people that Lauren's been interviewing over on She Plays Games as well. It is, there is a darn good reason why it's on the top 10 of games and hobbies. I couldn't explain why we're there, but I can see why she's there. So keep it.
Oh, but you guys are amazing. This has been lovely. This has been really, really lovely. Oh, shush, you're fine.
You are too kind.
You deserve it.
And you know what? You deserve it. Here's to hoping that if it's not us, we hope that it's you who wins that award. But nonetheless, everybody, thank you for keeping it nerdy here today. And Lauren, thank you for keeping it nerdy here with me.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
And
all right.